Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Panda Wrestling Company and TGN Networks proudly brings to you the most slept on podcast in the world. Superbeard Vince Hoover, Devil God Jamal Jones, Wrestling with Toxicity. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Wrestling with Toxicity. I am, of course, your host, Super Beer Vince Hoover, joined by my other host, Devil God Jamal Jones. And we are opening up the week, bringing you the latest information on what's going on in wrestling and how we can help stop the toxicity. Today's topic is a very interesting one. It's something that we've been in what is easily one of the most hectic, uh, not just weeks in wrestling, but kind of this year in general has kind of been like a crazy one. But we're coming off one of the most hectic weeks in wrestling after what should have been the greatest weekend in wrestling history. Uh, that has all been overshadowed by childish behavior, immature, ridiculous behavior, over the top behavior, just ridiculous amounts of BS. That being said, though, what's coming out this week is we're seeing that people don't understand the difference between a work and a shoot anymore. Part of that is being jaded over years of being worked and thinking something's real. And the dirt sheets don't help with this. Social media definitely doesn't help with this. And people are thinking a shoot is a work, and then they're thinking a work is a shoot. And a lot of people throw these terms out there, not even really knowing what they mean, where they come from, what they are. Um, Hopefully that somebody who worked in the business has friends who still work in the business at some of the highest levels. Maybe that'll help. Macho Fan has a great question. Did anyone really ever know the difference? I think the casual fan thought everything was a shoot, and that's the way it was supposed to be. That was what kayfabe was for.
Mm-hmm.
That is why way back in the day, Jimmy Hacksaw Duggan and I believe it was Iron Sheik were riding together. It got pulled over. Both those guys got fired because one was a babyface and one was a heel, and they were not supposed to be seen together. So back in the day, everything was quote unquote a shoot, when reality was 99.99% of it was a work.
Yep.
Nowadays, the smart marks like to think they know everything. Generico, you're right. Social media was a mistake. It has its benefits. I think we're all more connected now than ever.
Yep.
But it feels like there's more negatives and positives to social media. And trying to narrow it down specifically to wrestling. But as Jamal and we talked about this kind of beforehand, this mentality has flown over to politics, world events, culture in general, that people
Yep.
don't understand the difference between a work and a shoot, and think one is one way and not the other, and vice versa.
It's weird. It's really weird, especially looking at the scope of everything. Social media, it has its pros and it has its cons, and the cons are so much louder than the pros. That loud minority is what I like to call it. Everything about it isn't terrible, but the bad shit is noticeable. You can't even try to ignore it.
Yeah, Generico brings up a great point. The world is smaller, but egos are planetary, feeding into the main character vibes. This
Oh
is the
yeah.
problem with social media, is that everybody thinks they're the main character of the story. Their opinion is all that matters.
You're
Um,
not.
Obviously, we see this. Obviously, I also
Every
do,
day.
my Geeks and News podcast and Comic Talk, and you see it in the comic book world where people think their opinion. They didn't like a movie, so everybody should hate a movie. Um, everybody has this I'm the main character vibe. And I think, honestly, going back to wrestling, I think it's one of the reasons that Roman Reigns is so over, is that he has nailed the personification of that attitude with the, head of the table, tribal chief, acknowledge me.
Hmm.
Like, and there's so many people that are wearing his shirts unironically that believe they are on that same level. Uh, and it's funny, but it's more sad. Uh, Brock Lesnar guy started as a meme. Now he gets tables at conventions and selling merch. Nah, that's the dumbest thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, let's be real. I mean, hey, more power to him for
Get
seeing
your
an
money.
opportunity to build on something and make a career out of it. Good on
Yeah.
him. I mean, that's all any of us are doing on here or on TikTok or anything like that. But he got made famous kind of accidentally, got turned into a meme. There are so many people out there with memes. The guy who does that, the one that's the face where the guy's just like the blinking guy, like
Oh yeah.
he recently posted on Twitter, "Hey, look, that's me. If this meme has ever made you smile at any point, or if you've used it,
Hmm.
uh, thank you. And if you could you please donate to this charity?" So he has turned it into something good. Um,
It's a bunch of them. There's so
but there's
many.
so many of them out there that like have just like, hey, here's my 15 seconds of fame. Let me stretch it out as far as I can. And I'm going to say 15 seconds. It's normal. The saying is 15 minutes, but we now live in an era where the average attention span is less than 7 seconds.
If that,
And so to me, the new saying should be 15 seconds of fame.
most definitely.
Because that's what we live in now. So you know what? More power to the guy. And if people are going to go to his table, buy his merch, pay to get pictures with him,
Can't stop them.
I don't fault him at all.
No. He did absolutely nothing. He just he reacted to something organically. It got immortalized, and now he's making money off of it. He's like, you know what? Hey, if y'all gonna have my face everywhere, fuck it. Put it on t-shirts. Put it on 8x10s. I'm gonna sign them. Shit, make a couple of dollars, man. Shit.
He happened to pay a lot of money for WrestleMania front row seats.
Yeah.
Those are not cheap.
Hell no.
So you're talking a couple $1,000s.
That's a lot of money.
And he has now been used, like his WWE has taken him and used him in everything.
I
So why
mean,
not make a buck? I don't blame him, but the fact that it's a thing, the fact that he can do this, the fact that he can make money off of this, which him, more power to him. But the fact that people actually go, like he's selling merch and it's actually selling,
hmm,
it's kind of ridiculous. He's famous for just reacting how the rest of us reacted. He just happened to have a better visual because of where he sat.
yeah. It's like angry Miz girl.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at oh, what's her name? The girl that was like Bailey's biggest fan back in NXT.
I remember, yeah.
She now has a podcast and press credentials to get to do interviews and stuff. And
Word.
her parents are the worst. Her parents are the worst. They did everything they could to get people like fired from NXT, to get people like they've done a lot. Like they're terrible human beings. Uh,
Jesus.
I'm not going to dive into into those two assholes, but if you ever just Google it and look it up and look at all the stuff they've done. By the way, I so horrible of me as a host, but I forgot to mention our lovely sponsor of the show and of Panda Wrestling Company, Rootless Coffee. Go to rootlesscoffee.com, use the code Panda Coffee, it's PANDACOFFE, for 15% off all non-branded coffee and all merchandise. So rootlesscoffee.com for some of the best coffee on the planet. Also, if you're watching this, whether it be the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch, the Panda Wrestling Company YouTube, or the Panda Wrestling Company Twitter, or if you're watching this on the Geeks and Noobs Twitch, the TGN Network's YouTube, or the Geeks and Noobs Podcast Facebook, thank you all so much. If you could please like, subscribe, follow all the things you're supposed to do on whatever site you're on. And if you're on Twitch, please, if you could subscribe, we appreciate your generosity. If you have an Amazon Prime sub that you haven't used yet, if you could use that, make Jeffrey Bezos pay for it, we greatly appreciate it. Generico followed up. Don't get me wrong. I'm not faulting anybody for getting their bag. I'm faulting the people who pay for it. Yeah, that was the same place I was coming from, Generico. Give your money to people who produce something good. I'd rather support wrestling with regret than BLG. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, it's and that's the thing about social media. So, I think a great example of social media is Logan Paul on both sides of that penny. We saw the absolute worst with the whole Suicide Force issue.
Yep.
And we've seen somebody come back and try to turn it into something good. I want to recommend everybody go to the latest episode of Impulsive. I'm currently halfway through it right now. I'm going to finish it after the podcast. He's interviewing Roman Reigns, and so far it's a fantastic interview. Also, go watch this one with Triple H. Very insightful, very honest. Um, Another one has done that is, of course, Ryan Satin with, I believe it's called Outside the Character or Out of Character.
I think so.
Those are amazing interviews. Ryan Satin's awesome. Love that dude. Another one has been the Ariel Helwani interviews from Clash at the Castle. All of those are great. Go watch them. But this is where one of the things I want to touch on before we get into like the AEW debacle. There are a lot of people out there going, "Oh my God, you see Seth Rollins hates Matt Riddle. He hates him. It's a shoot." No, it's not. It's not. The interview that he gave with Ariel Helwani is out of character a bit, but he's still very much in character because it happened before Clash of the Castle. He was still pushing the match. But he just talked about, I hate Matt Riddle. I think his ego is too much. He's a great in-ring performer, and the world is his oyster, but his ego is too big, blah, 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 blah. He mentioned the fact that his now ex-wife said some things, fat-shaming Becky Lynch for some weird reason. And he's just like, and he had to back his wife, blah, 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 blah. He didn't back his wife because in an interview from about a year ago, maybe 18 months, where Matt Riddle Seth Rollins talked about Matt Riddle. He's like, yeah, I didn't want to work with him for like a year. I didn't even want to talk to him, after what his wife said. But, he came to me, he found me, and he apologized profusely. He said he didn't agree with what she said. She was completely out of line. And I got talking with him, and he's actually a really cool guy. And he's not as, airheaded as people say he is. He's not as dumb as he's actually very smart, blah, 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 blah. You've also seen them on Up, Up, Down, Down. Hey, Kel, how's it going? You've also seen him on Up, Up, Down, Down, competing in video games with Matt Riddle. Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle, they hang out. They've done things. They may not be the best of friends. They may not be riding in the car together. But they don't hate each other. They respect each other. They like each other enough to do things outside of the company, which I know Up, Up, Down, Down is owned by WWE, but it's still technically outside of the company. It's still something like Seth Rollins didn't have to do that, or Matt Riddle didn't have to do it. If they didn't like each other, why would you be in that room?
Exactly.
So Seth, although technically slightly out of character in that Ariel Helwani interview, he stayed in character because the match hadn't happened yet. So he was still promoting the match.
Yeah.
If he just told everybody, oh no, him and I buried the hatchet, we're cool, that match has no heat. All the heat they built up is gone. So he does this out of character interview where he says he still hates the guy. He's like, oh, there's real animosity there, blah, blah, blah.
Certain term we're missing here. Work shoot.
Yeah.
This is literally what it is. It's a work shoot.
Yeah.
They're still draping the veil over your eyes while making it seem like it's more than what it is. It's a little bit it's closer to reality than you think. That's why a lot of the supposed smart fans are like, oh, it's a work. I mean, it's not a work. It's a shoot. It's just they really don't like each other. It's like, do sources confirm? No, not really.
There's enough stuff to prove otherwise.
Exactly.
Out there.
People don't pay attention to the big picture. They just look at what's happening right in front of them and think that's what it is.
And it's sad to me because a lot of the YouTube dirt sheets like Cultaholic, What Culture, WrestleMania, etc.
Mm-hmm.
They're the worst, with one exception. Simon Miller. I think Simon Miller is a ray of sunshine in there. I think he's amazing. However, even he fell for it. He did a whole video on how Seth Rollins actually hates Matt Riddle. Completely fell for it. Now, this guy wrestles. I mean, he was literally just in Texas wrestling Mission Pro Wrestling, Thunder Rosa's promotion. He's wrestled all over the UK. Mm-hmm. And he has been doing this dirt sheet stuff for several years now. And he's normally a positive Pete kind of guy. And for him to and I don't know if he was assigned this and maybe they thought it coming from him, it might be better taken, but it's still just, it's crazy how people can get work. But even Dave Meltzer gets work. Even Sean Ross Sapp gets worked. They all get worked from time to time. It happens. They're not all knowing beings. They're not all, they're not the Watcher, for my Marvel fans.
Yeah,
they don't see everything. They don't know everything. So even they get worked. And speaking of work, there's still people out there who think that this whole backstage debacle with CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Omega is a work.
I don't know.
What?
Mm-mm.
And then people are getting themselves worked up because somebody on Twitter said that CM Punk's return is equivalent to Ultimate Warrior's return in '97 at WCW.
Ooh.
It's that bad. Somebody else who works for Fightful responded like, how can you even say that? A lot of Punk's matches were good. He had a great run. It just ended poorly with this whole debacle. However, somebody else said, well, I don't think you can call it great. I think some of his matches were good, but it wasn't spectacular. And then that same person, the same person who attacked somebody else's opinion, but who said that it was Ultimate Warrior levels bad, attacked their opinion, right?
Yeah.
The same person then was like, hey, whoa. It's just my opinion, bro. It's wrestling. We all have opinions. Why are you attacking me? The guy that responded to him didn't attack him. He just said, hey, in my opinion, I don't think it's a stretch to call it great. But he also said in that same tweet, I think it's a stretch to call it great, but it's an even bigger stretch to say it was Ultimate Warrior level bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad.
So then the guy who attacked somebody for the Ultimate Warrior bad opinion, then all of a sudden got super defensive. Whoa, it's just my opinion, bro. I can say it's great because that's what I believe. How dare you attack me? And it's because he works for Fightful. He feels he's infallible. He feels that his opinion is a fact.
Get fucked.
And I'm like, dude, first of all, you're not even somebody that anybody knows your name. Yes, you work for Fightful, but nobody knows who you are. Like, you're not a Sean Ross Sapp. And the only reason people know Sean Ross Sapp is because he got, he's had some good break. They have pretty good connections. He's had some pretty good insight. But even like I said, Sean Ross Sapp gets worked and gets things wrong. But like, if you think something's a shoot, that's your opinion. Fine. You're probably wrong, unfortunately. And let's think about opinions. Oh, well, opinions can't be wrong. Oh, yeah, they can. Opinions can be wrong when it's an objective thing.
Oh yeah.
When it's subjective, like this movie's good or this movie's bad. Like the people who hate Thor: Love and Thunder for some weird reason.
Can't put my finger on why.
If that's your opinion, fine. But don't tell people they're wrong for liking it.
Exactly.
And the same thing goes in something like this. You didn't like the guy saying that it was Ultimate Warrior level bad. That's fine. Just don't attack the person and give your opinion. For me, the response should have been, well, for me, I think it was actually great. I thought he had some bangers of matches, and it's just a shame it ended this way. That's fine. Not attack the person. And then when somebody says, well, I don't necessarily think it was great, you then attack them trying to defend your stance. That's not how any of this works, because your opinion is just your opinion. That's it. Opinions can be wrong when something's objective. When it's subjective, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. They're just opinions.
Yep.
That's why they say art is subjective, and this is an art.
Very much so. Because, like you said, when Punk came back, everybody was hyped with the nostalgia. He hadn't been in the ring in years. Completely had been blowing off the idea of even going back to wrestling beforehand. And for him to come back and stay, instead of doing like a one-off, he came back and stayed. Everything was cool. But like like you said, everything that he's done between before this whole situation and when he came back, it's kind of like he just soured it all in one go. Like whatever was good about it, it's just I ain't gonna say he just washed it away, but he most definitely put a sour taste in a lot of folks' mouths with this.
Well, because what he did was childish, and the
Very.
more it's come out, we've learned that. So when he attacked, he saw that housing guy. He's just like, "Hey, you do improv?" Like he tried to get him to like admit that he was friends with Colt Cabana, and when the
Mhm.
guy said, "Yeah, but Colt and I haven't been friends for years," he literally said, "Oh, well, you just blew up my spot," and then he continued to go on with the tirade. Anyways, he had planned the tirade. That is a level of emotional immaturity that is
That's petty.
astronomical.
That's petty as
Tony
hell.
Khan sitting there letting it happen is also bad. The blame is on Punk. The blame is also on Tony Khan. The blame is also on the Young Bucks and on Kenny Omega. The fact that you just brought in these talent relation guys, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, etc., to be your talent relations, and then talent relations tries to stop the fight. They try to get in the middle of it and break it up, and they get suspended too. Makes no sense to me either. There has been bad decision after bad decision after bad decision since that presser, and it has tainted. It's tainted the legacy of CM Punk on his return. It's tainted Tony Khan and what he's doing. It's tainted the Young Bucks legacy. It's tainted Kenny Omega's legacy. Kenny Omega, I mean, you don't tell people if you have a problem with me, come say it to my face. And then when people say it to your face, you hide behind a door and then throw the first punch.
Mhm.
You asked for this. You
Yep.
literally asked for it.
I mean, you
We
want free
have video
smoke?
proof of that.
Don't tell me you want free smoke, and when I bring it to you, you get scared.
At the same time, the Young Bucks should have not threatened to kick the door down, been as aggressive and violent as they were in their approach. They should have been like, "Look, you asked us. You said if you want us to say it to your, you see, we have a problem. Say it to our face. We're here to say it to your face. Let's talk." Instead of threatening to kick the door down,
These are all
Kenny.
grown men.
Then you have, CM Punk has his yes man in Ace Seal, who throws a chair at somebody and then bites Kenny Omega.
Fucking hell.
Like, what kind of bullshit is that? But
It's
now
like,
there's so many people out there going, "Oh, this is a work. Look at what they did on Dynamite." Yes, Dynamite was a great. Okay, it wasn't a great response. It was close to great. And I understand there's legal things going on, but they should have still mentioned that due to suspensions, they didn't mention any reason why there was vacation. The titles were
yeah,
vacated. He just said they're vacated. Uh, because again, Tony Khan relies too hard on the dirt sheets to tell half of his story.
it's just lazy,
But
if you ask me.
John Moxley came out and said, "Hey, I've got this. On what is supposed to be my vacation, I am back, and I'm going to cut one of the greatest promos of all time, and I'm going to carry this company and be the rock that I've always been."
Mhm.
And now this tournament's happening, and we're going to get some great matches out of it. But it's just, is it too little, too late? Who knows? Um, I also want to say I appreciate Kevin Owens coming out and basically saying, "Oh, did you see that Moxie promo? Hold my beer," and going out on Raw yesterday and cutting one of the most hellacious promos ever. So between John Moxley and Kevin Owens, thank you.
Oh yeah.
That was just beyond amazing. Kel says, "I admit I was a fan of CM Punk when he did this infamous pipe bomb promo, but then when I saw real actual interviews with him outside of wrestling, I thought, oh my god, this guy really does think he's the best wrestler in the world, and immediately lost interest in him." Yeah, no, he believes all a bit of hype. Little bit of insight on the pipe bomb, this famous pipe bomb. It was scripted. That was not off the cuff. Pipe bomb was scripted.
I tell you one that wouldn't. Joey Styles.
Yeah,
Now that
Joey Styles' pipe bomb is the real pipe bomb because
that
that was
was a
not
shoot.
scripted.
That was a whole shoot. That was a shooting two. That was shooting two bits, man. Joey Styles went out there and poured his real heart out.
I don't think that this is necessarily the end of AEW by any stretch, but
No,
they have a
but it's
lot. Like we had already talked about how they needed to step things up, they need to work on things they were building to. They
This
have now
is
fallen way down the stairs.
it's a
They have
massive
fallen
step
way
back.
down that mountain. They were taking baby steps forward and
Yeah,
working towards something, which is how you do it. Like they shouldn't like work towards it, but they have fallen way down this Mount Everest back to the base camp at the bottom,
yep.
and they kind of have to start over now. I think last Wednesday was a baby step. I think that they're back to baby steps. I don't
There you
think it's
go.
done. I think you have enough talent there. You have so much talent there. If
Hella
Tony
people.
Khan gets out of his own way, the sky's the limit for AEW. They could easily become legit like competition to WWE in the
Yeah.
sense of like numbers. Like they can build this up. They can get there. They can start having, you know, WWE level ratings. They can get there. That's not a problem. They have the talent for it. Tony Khan has to ease off the reins, allow other people to step in and trust them. And they're there. They're already there.
Yeah.
But again, because there's so many people who think that the entire situation with Punk is a work, is that we're going to see Punk come back. Part of why I said they needed to mention the suspensions is because the news came out on Wednesday that Punk was injured in his match with Jon Moxley at All Out. And so now
Hmm.
it just looks like he vacated the title because of his injury, because he's going to be out 6 to 8 months with this injury, if not
Shit.
longer. If not longer. He apparently completely tore his tricep. This is what I'm talking about. It's baby steps, but it's not enough.
No.
This is why people think, oh, see, it was a work because he's injured, and now you have an excuse to cover up the injury and in story because he just vacated, he just tried to vacate due to his last injury after winning it, and so now he's injured again, and they don't want it to seem like he's so injury prone. So even though he is injured, let's do this. Let's make it a work, or let's do this. And by the way, if this is a work, if we find out in a year or two, 10 years from now that this was all a work, this is one of the worst things you could ever do.
It's
This is a
cheesy.
terrible work.
It's so cheesy.
You called out somebody, you called out their mother by name. You then attacked your EVPs. The people who founded AEW. Like, it's the worst thing you could do. And I don't care if you were trying to make Punk a heel. That goes
That's not
beyond
how you
heel.
do it.
That's beyond heel.
That's just not how you do that.
No, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. But again, this is not a work. I threw out that maybe, but no, it's not a work. 100% a shoot. Like I said, oh, you blew up my spot because he went into that presser with a plan.
It's so
And
fucking
why? You won
stupid.
in your hometown. You
Exactly.
got your title back. And by the way, absolutely poor booking having Jon Moxley. AEW does this thing, and Tony Khan does this thing where, because WWE has a bad habit of people in their hometowns do not get to win.
The
They make a big
Lex
deal
Luger
about being in their hometown, and then that person loses. We literally
yep.
just saw it in Cardiff,
getting
although it's not.
getting Lex Luger.
Yeah, yeah. So like AEW tries to do instead of learning from that, they're like, oh, we're just going to do the exact opposite. So when you're in your hometown, you win. So they were in Cincinnati,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I believe, Moxley's actually from Cleveland, but it's close to hometown.
Yeah.
Still considered hometown boy. So he gets to squash Punk. 2 weeks later, not even 2 weeks later, 10 days later, Punk wins in Chicago. And this was all done so that Punk could get the title, like could win the title in Chicago instead of unifying the titles in Chicago. That's what should have happened. If
Yeah.
they wanted to give Moxley the win, the two of them could have had an impromptu fight they should have announced a promo between the two, turned it into an impromptu fight, non-title fight, and have Moxley just squash him. Feign the injury, do that storyline would have worked so much better. Instead, they unify the titles only for Moxley to lose them 10 days later. it loses a lot of credibility,
It does.
uh, and so it was handled poorly from the get go. From the get go, but then for Punk to be
Yeah.
like that, and then like I said, for the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega to go in there with violence on their mind, and I say that because why are you threatening to break the door down? Because you could have easily, Brandon Cutler was filming all of this. There's footage of it. So what they could have done is easily they could have made Punk look real bad. They could have been knocking on the
Mhm.
door and said, "Hey, you said if you wanted this, if we had something to say it to your face, we're here to talk. We're here to tell it to your face what we have an issue with." And Punk hiding behind a locked door after that huge media scrum, you're now the winner. You won. You won. If you won't open the door, you've won. But the fact they went there with violence in mind, because once you move to we'll break the damn door down, it's too much.
Yeah.
But I do want to give some props to Kenny Omega because he did try to save the dog, and he got bit for it. He didn't get bit by the dog; he got bit by Ace Steel.
He bit him
Which
like a
again, I
dog.
still can't
Goddamn
believe
it!
that happened.
I could take a bite out of the man. Who the fuck does that? Put your mouth on me.
A yes man whose career was over decades ago and is worthless for everything else other than the fact that Punk wants him there. That's who does it. Um, Jamal, I want to get your thoughts on the work shoot. This blurred line that it's a blurred line, but it's blurred incorrectly, right?
Very much so. It's not like my background right now. No.
No, which is
Uh,
epically blurred.
it, it,
By the way, real quick before we go any further into your thoughts, everybody check out his new setup here. Got a nice webcam, microphone, looking good, ladies and gentlemen, looking good. All right, go ahead.
yeah, but when it comes to that, a lot of first off, a lot of fans feel like they know too much, anyways. So when it comes to works and work shoots and shoots, uh, people blur the lines because they want to be right all the time. So when they're wrong, it is like it's a shock to the system. It is. And when the answer's right there in their face, they don't want to believe it. That's the first thing they want to do. They want to try to debunk something. They want to try to prove something wrong. With these blurred lines, especially with the stuff going on now, you have two separate situations. You have the stuff going on in AEW with Punk and the Elite, and then you have these interviews that Seth Rollins and people in WWE have done. What Seth Rollins did was a work shoot. He may not like Riddle, but he worked it into the angle for the match, and he was he was promoting. That's all he was doing in that interview. He was promoting. That's all he was doing. He was just putting hype behind the match. It was no different than who was someone back in the day with Muhammad Ali when they used to talk to him, and he didn't actually dislike his opponents half the time. No, he respected most of them. He would get out there and he would talk trash and he would hype up the fight. That's what he was doing. And in essence, I mean, Muhammad Ali was a sports entertainer.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then he went out there, he hyped up that fight. He jaw jacked and got that fight. All the ticket sales was gonna get all the pay-per-view buys, everything. He went out there and put butts in seats by talking his talk, just like Seth Rollins did. With Punk wasn't trying to make nobody look good. He wasn't trying to hype up no match. He had nothing going on with the Elite. He
Just trying to
opened his
bury people.
trap. Yeah, he opened his trap trying to be malicious, and that's what he did. He was successful in what he was going for. He was trying to be malicious. He was trying to be ugly. He hit the fucking nail on the head with what he was going at. Now, were the Elite wrong in their approach to him? Yeah, they were just as wrong as he was. But when you poke the bear, expect the reaction. You know, these are all grown men, all over the age of 33, 34. What you think is gonna happen? You literally challenged another grown man to a fist fight or to some type of a confrontation, and you think he wasn't? Especially he's in shouting range or and and walking distance from you, he ain't gonna come up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is me, this is just me using my street smarts here. If you say you want to fight, I'm right here. It's nothing but space and opportunity. That's
Yeah,
it.
when you say "come say it to my face," that's not a "hey, let's talk like men together."
Yeah, nah.
That's a "come at me, bro," is what that
Yep.
is. Um, Something else I want to say about the Seth one,
Hmm.
because people are like, "Oh, but he was out of character. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't doing his whole thing. He even said he
So,
respects Riddle." Do you guys remember what happened with the after Raw went to commercial and the whole like, "Hey, you want to talk about my wife? Let's talk about your wife." Oh wait, you don't have one. That whole part, they were making it very real.
hmm
So in continuing to promote the match, he continued that same energy. Oh, this is me out of character, but I don't like him. No, it's blurring the lines of reality from the script. That's what a work shoot is. That's what WWE does best. That's what wrestling is supposed to do.
in all honesty, they trying to steal the curtain back.
Yeah, that's all.
They're trying to steal the curtain back, and I can't blame them because Vince McMahon essentially handed the curtain to the fans years ago. He gave away,
The Attitude Era, the Brett screwed Brett and all that shit. Yeah.
mhm. He gave up the goose a long time ago, but now a lot of promotions are trying to take it back. They're trying to reestablish the art of disbelief, and the stuff WWE is doing that. They are actually doing that. They're doing a good job of doing it, especially with certain storylines. AEW, no, these dudes genuinely got into a fucking
Fight.
a full blown
Brawl.
Donnybrook.
Yeah,
Once again,
Donnybrook. That's a good word.
yeah, they got into a full blown Donnybrook in the backstage area because this 44-year-old man wanted to open his mouth and talk shit and try to make people look bad. And for what? You weren't getting anything out of it. You're not going to benefit from it. What was the point? And you get confronted and you go and cower behind a door and then you sneak somebody. You sucker punch the first person you get your eyes on. Like what is that? Like you don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things you touched on is about how fans want to be smart. They want to know, like, they want to know that it's a work, and if they're wrong, then they get pissed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason that fans in the wrestling world, especially, is because they want to be part of it.
Yeah.
They know they'll never get in a ring, but they want to feel like they're part of that world. And so by thinking they know everything, thinking they know what's going on behind the scenes, thinking they know what's a work and what's a shoot, makes them feel like they're part of the locker room when they're not.
No.
But that's exactly
But
why it's like that. And I, I mean, I guess from a certain standpoint, I can understand that thought. The reason I got into the business in the first place is because I wanted to be a part of it.
mm-hmm.
That's why I went to a wrestling school. That's why I started wrestling, because I wanted to be a part of it. But there are people who understand that they'll never be able to do it on a physical standpoint. So the next best thing is just, oh, I'm all knowledgeable about it. I know what's going on. I'm on the inside, even though they're far from it. And most of the times they're so far from it, they're on a different planet. But these same people just, oh, well, it's not my opinion, it's fact. No, it's your opinion. And your
Yep.
opinion is not fact.
No.
And you need to calm your ego down because you're far, far from knowing what's going on backstage. A lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
and like something that has happened too is that things have purposely been leaked incorrectly. And yet people just take it at face value. Um, it's crazy to me how much value people put in what they find on Twitter, how much value they put in these dirt sheets. And
Way
again,
too
it's because
much.
they want to be on the inside. I get it. Why do you think people watch behind the scenes of movies and watch
Yeah.
commentaries and learn more?
Mm-hmm.
I do that all the time because I love film.
Yeah.
I went to film school. I have a degree in film production because I wanted to know how it works, why. That's why shows how does it work and stuff like that are popular. It's because people want to know how the mechanics of things work. Wrestling fans want to be in the locker room. They want to know how something happens. Unfortunately, that leads to all the issues we're having now.
Mm-hmm.
People just
It's
don't
just
understand the difference.
it's nothing wrong with being a fan and wanting to be, overly involved in your fandom. There's nothing wrong with that at all. You know, we see comic book fans do it. We see wrestling fans do it. We see fans from all different types of mediums do that. But like you said, the problem comes in. Folks want to be so involved to the point where they kind of just they'll believe anything, or they'll feel like they have this holier than thou type of mindset. They say, "Oh, I got all the inside, the inside knowledge and whatnot." It's like, no, you read an article and that's it, or you saw a couple of misleading tweets, and that's what you're going based off of. You have nothing from any type of reliable source, either it be the person that's being spoken on or somebody that's really close to them. It's case in point, the Jeff Hardy situation from
Oh
from
yeah.
not long ago. When it first happened, my only statement in any video I made about it was, until Jeff or Matt said something, I'm just chilling. I'm not gonna buy into anything else. I'm gonna need somebody whose last name is Hardy within their family to say something about this. Because if Matt says he's okay, I'm just gonna take his word for it. Because that's his brother. Who better to tell the truth than his brother? You know, and people do this all the time, up and down the forums on Reddit, Twitter, wherever you go. It
And
gets
yeah,
yeah.
MGS promo before he quote unquote left, he spoke the truth about fans. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, you're right. But also,
it's
like, there's
work
something
shoot.
that happens. So you see it in comic book fandoms. You have the Marvel versus DC people,
Oh boy,
who, like, if you're a DC fan, they can do no wrong, or Marvel, they can do no wrong. But even on a character to character basis, there's the Team Cap and the Team Iron Man people for the MCU. Team Cap, by the way. But like in wrestling, it happens a lot too. You become a fan of this person. Like, a lot of Punk fans are still defending him to this day for what he did. The
of
Punk
course,
detractors are taking this ball and running completely out of the stadium with it. I mean, this even happens in sports. Like, you see a play happen where, the opposing team. Crap, I froze again. It'll be fine. I'll fix it in a second. Um, you see the opposing team. So let's say, like, a perfect example. I'm a Buccaneers fan. There was the Bucks versus the Cowboys this past week. Leonard Fournette blocked Micah Parsons on one thing, and Cowboys fans were saying it was a dirty hit. He blindsided them. Bucks fans are like, no, it's a clean legal hit. That's why there was no penalty called.
hmm
At the end of the day, neither side's actually right until the rules people say something. If he got fined for it, then it was a dirty hit. If they
yep,
say it was clean, then it's clean.
it
Which,
is
by the
what
way,
it
it came
is.
back that it was clean.
Yep,
So let me fix my camera.
it happens a lot though. It happens a lot where you just have these fans who support certain athletes, whether wrestlers or football, basketball players and such. No matter what they do, they just see them as these God amongst men type of deal, and you can't sit up here and live with this idea that they can't be held accountable. Like if you do that, they'll get away with everything. They'll never see justice for anything they do, even street justice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. Both of these statements, I'll admit, when my team gets away with a call or a bad call is called on the other team, I'm all on
Mhm.
it. Yeah, same with wrestling. Well, another example on the sports side of things was Kyrie Irving last year. He refused to get vaccinated for whatever reason, and that's not something I want to dive into. But the Kyrie Irving fans or the people that were anti-vax were all on him, like his side, like he should be allowed to play, blah, 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 blah. And then the pro-vax people and the Kyrie Irving detractors were like, no, this guy should be fired. He should never be allowed to play basketball again, da, da, da. They took it to such extremes on both sides. It's like, no, this guy has his stance, whether you agree with it or not. And he's going to, if the problem is his stance goes against the protocols of the Brooklyn Nets arena, so he can't play any home games. That is the consequence of his choice. End of discussion. He accepts that and he can move on. If he wants to bitch about it, he can bitch about it, but it doesn't change the fact that that's what the protocol is.
Yep.
So it is what it is. But people were people were calling for his head, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I respected his position, but the Nets' decision as well. Exactly.
Yep.
The Nets were. This put the Nets in an awkward position. They had to follow the protocol of the city and everything. And they're like, okay, look, if that's we're not going to force you to get the vaccine, but if you don't get it, you can't play here because the protocols of the city dictate that you have to be vaccinated to be in the arena. Again, I don't want to get into a vax anti-vax discussion because it's asinine beyond belief. This sudden disbelief in science, whatever, fine. But
it's crazy.
At the end of the day,
it makes sense.
But at the end of the day, that's what I'm talking about with fans, and it's the blurred line between work and shoot is also a problem of it's that people don't have a cruise control. They hear something and they make a very quick decision. They slam on the gas like it's a drag race. And then they go 1,000 miles an hour with it versus let's learn more. Or maybe accept the fact that we're never going to get the full story no matter what happens.
Exactly.
And don't worry if it's a work or shoot. Just sit back and watch what happens. In the case of the AEW brawl and that post-media scrum, it's not so much a sit back and wait what happens kind of thing. It's more of a, okay, it's time to move on kind of thing. Let them be punished. Let the company handle it. We weren't there. We saw the post-media scrum. We all saw that. We all can accept the fact that Punk was way out of bounds.
Everything we're hearing different
backstage. Sides. We're hearing different sides of what happened backstage. Nobody that was actually involved has been able to come out and speak about it. Legal is involved. That tells you that there's a legit issue here. So, yeah, everything has become so black and white lately, no gray area. Yeah, and that's on so many fronts. So many fronts. And it's sad. It's just sad.
We get this a lot. Anytime something like really sketchy goes on, and especially in pro wrestling, nobody really talks about it. Case in point, with pretty much anything that happens that gets covered by Dark Side of the Ring, whenever they cover any of those types of stories and such, they're revealing as much of the truth as they have access to. But prior to that, they have nothing on nothing. Fans are confused. Fans are wondering what happened. Like, case in point, I rewatched the Owen Hart episode, and I always wondered what in God's name caused him to just be released like that. And his wife showed the little clip that was holding him. It only takes 6 pounds of pressure for it to pop open. Like, that's not good. And they tried to make it seem like it was something. They tried to make it seem like he did it for so many years, that he hit some type of quick release mechanism on it, that he did something wrong or something like that. Like, no, y'all use cheap equipment and it cost somebody their life type shit.
Okay, this is actually a perfect example.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've been around a little bit longer than you have. I remember, unfortunately, watching that event live. I remember everything about it. I've been in the business, dealing with the business for nearly 20 years. I have never once heard anybody say that it was Owen Hart's fault. I have never once heard that side, that he released something, that he did something wrong. I've never once heard that side. Not once. So this is my point. The
Mm-hmm.
information that I'm getting from what I've read and what I've seen and the people I've talked to, I've never once heard that. Whereas you are getting information from another source saying that, you've always heard that he did a quick release. They're trying to blame him. WWE blamed him. I've never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my point. There's sides to everything. There are takes to everything. There are agendas behind said takes. What could have happened was that the people who were putting out that Owen Hart, WWE said that Owen Hart released it, back to his wife, Owen Hart's wife, who has always had an axe to grind against WWE for this. Understandably so. She lost her husband in this
Yeah.
stunt. She has maybe helped push the narrative that WWE has blamed Owen for releasing something and they're lying. So that's what you heard. But those people had an agenda against WWE or against somebody involved. All I had ever heard was that the rigging company that did the rigging messed up.
Yep.
And that there was no pre-test done or something, or they just assumed that they had done it so many times that it would work, blah, 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 blah.
Plus, it wasn't the same crew that did it his first couple of times. It wasn't the same people.
It was a different people in that city. It was a new crew.
Mm-hmm.
But this goes back, so I remember I did this. This is kind of a weird story, but it'll tie in. So give me a minute.
Go for it.
When I was living in Tacoma, Seattle area, when I was in the Army, my wife at the time and I went on this city ghost tour where they take you around the city and show you different places where there might be ghosts and stuff. I'm really big into that stuff. I think it's fascinating. One said ghost was there was these performers from Japan in like the 1950s. They were they were performance artists. They were those very strange performance artists. So these people, they went up on this building and they would wrap themselves in a blanket and then wrap themselves in ropes and literally hang from the building as part of their art. It was supposed to represent some kind of slave issue or something in Japan, or people were being mistreated in workplaces, something. It was meant to represent something. Now, no, they did this all over the world. Okay? Normally, they brought their own ropes they trusted. However, they weren't allowed to fly with said ropes in their luggage this time. So they arrived and had to find ropes in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have time to test the ropes. One of the guys, his rope snapped. It couldn't hold his weight. It snapped. He fell 15 stories wrapped in a blanket, head first pointed down, died. And apparently his ghost still haunts that area of that block of the city to this day. Same thing here.
Yeah.
Normally, WWE had one crew that was doing it. They had to get that crew couldn't come along or whatever happened, or city regulations, something. They were required to use a local crew to set this up. That local crew didn't properly test. Again, this is what I've heard. That local crew didn't properly test. Something went wrong. Boom, that's it. Now, where I think WWE's responsibility is that they should have scrapped it immediately. When they couldn't have used their own crew, and this was kind of a last-minute setup with this new crew, the idea should have been scrapped.
Yeah, offer it.
Or at least modified to maybe doing it some other way, not necessarily that high up or that necessarily, whatever. It should have been scrapped, really. But again, this is the whole point of today's episode, is the fact that in all my years since that happened, I've never once heard anybody blame Owen Hart that he hit something on a quick release and did it to himself. I've never heard that. You have heard, in your time learning about this story, have heard that Owen Hart is being blamed by WWE. I didn't watch that Dark Side of the Ring episode because, I remember that moment so vividly. And Owen Hart, I was such a big Owen Hart fan, and I was like, I don't want to relive that. So I just didn't watch it.
I was 5 when it happened, so I had no clue. Because I remember.
Oh, here's a great. Okay, this is great. I heard that Owen had dirt on Vince, so Vince took him out. Not really, but it's easy nowadays to make up shit and pass it off as truth. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to tweet that, not the parentheses part, but just tweet that first part, somebody's going to run with that. It's
Yep.
going to become an article, and people are going to take it as truth. And again, that's sad.
Don Morocco actually Never mind. Don Morocco actually had shit going on. Never mind. That's different.
The thing is, in a locker room, honestly, it wouldn't even take followers. It
Nah.
wouldn't even take you having followers. You put that out there, somebody's going to grab it, and it's going to end up somebody
Yeah,
with
yeah.
followers will grab it and run with it. Somebody who has an agenda of their own. Oh,
Most
here's a way to
definitely.
bury WWE. Let's start something. But
Mm-hmm.
um,
Start some shit.
yeah, um, it's it happens a lot in wrestling locker rooms. It happens in almost any locker room. There are plenty of guys in the NFL that are on the team with somebody they don't like. They're on the team with somebody they don't like. They don't hang out. They don't really talk,
Mhm.
but they get out there. They do their work. Same thing happens in wrestling.
Most definitely, especially tag teams.
Yeah. I mean, you go out there, you do your work. You have to wrestle somebody you don't like. That's fine. We'll just have a match. It'll be fine. No big deal.
Mhm.
It happens all the time. It even happens in acting. You have to like, oh, I'm in a movie with this person. I don't like this person, but I have a job to do. I do my job.
Yep.
I'm not sure that one will take off as quite as well.
Yeah.
Plus, who wants
Could
that much? Who wants 14 inches? Like, that's just too much.
you never seen RJ Berger? He passed out every time.
Yeah, that's just too much, man. That would be a pain in the ass, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
That would just be the biggest
that-
hassle. Forget
That's
that. No,
awful.
thank you. No, thank you.
That's just awful.
Having to buy custom underwear and shit because they don't make them to fit that. No, I'm good.
Like, well,
I'm quite happy and content with what I have. No need. No need.
I, I
That's too.
need
I know.
I need pants to house this dragon. Thank you.
No, no, I'm good. I'm just being comfortable and heavy. Forget that. Anyways, on that note, I'd like to thank our sponsor once again, Rootless Coffee. Go to rootlesscoffee.com. Use the code Panda Coffee. That's PANDACOFFEE. Get 15% off all non-branded coffee and all merchandise. So go to rootlesscoffee.com for some of the best coffee in the world. Right in your home. Also, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you're not already doing it, please follow whatever you're watching this on, be it the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter, or if you're on the Geeks and the Noobs, if you're on our YouTube, TGN Networks, if you're on our Twitch of Geeks and Noobs, if you're on our Facebook, the Geeks and Noobs podcast, please like, subscribe, follow all the jazz for social media. If you feel so generous, we all appreciate a subscription. If you could subscribe, it's only $4.99 on Twitch, or you can use your Amazon Prime sub. Make Jeffrey Bezos pay for it. It helps us all out greatly. So once again, thank you all for that so very much. Appreciate that. Yes, it was a nice transition. Thank you.
Man, that's Captain Segway.
Yeah, it's what I do, man. It's what I do.
Captain Segway.
But yeah, I just you're gonna be in locker rooms for people you don't like. That happens.
Yeah.
That doesn't equal drama, though. That doesn't equal all the
No.
stuff the dirt sheets want to talk about. Like the stuff with Seth Rollins. If Seth Rollins really doesn't care for Riddle, that's fine. But he's obviously proved that he actually halfway at least likes the guy. Like I said, you can go on Up, Up, Down, Down on YouTube, and you can see them playing video games together. You're not doing that with somebody you don't like. If you really don't like the person, those guys, the WWE superstars do not get paid for Up Up Down Down for their appearances. It is literally just fun for them.
Yeah, they
In
just
the
go
locker
and
room.
have fun playing
It is
video
something that happens
games.
in the locker room. It is fun for them. They do not get paid for these appearances. So why would Seth Rollins or Riddle be involved against each other? Have, by the way, great banter between the two of them that's all pleasant, all fun, all friendly, very friendly. Why would you even why would you do that? Why are you putting on fun? Now, was Seth Rollins slightly in character during that event?
Yeah.
Yes, doing the laughing, he wore one of his suits, that kind of thing. But he also very quickly during the video game broke character as he was playing. And he was very much back to just the real person. Why would you put yourself in that position for no money, for nothing? It's just it's crazy to me. And even the thing about that video too is Seth had already competed for the Up Down Down title in a separate video that they played in that video, like a separate time. He didn't have to be in the portion where Matt Riddle was.
Hmm.
He didn't have to be in that portion. By the way, I also recommend people go watch that because you get to see AJ Styles lose his fucking shit.
Oh
It's
my god,
hilarious when
it's
AJ
funny.
loses and he ends up like pounding the table.
He
It's
damn near flipped it.
hilarious. Yeah, yeah, that was
That
great.
shit was fucking funny.
I love AJ to death. Even though he is a flat earther, I love him to death. I don't even want to get started on that rant. But yeah, that's a good point. The dirt sheets so bad want to be bookers. LOL.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think one of the best examples of that is that fact that What Culture actually started their own wrestling promotion several years ago,
Oh yeah, I
and it
remember
went
that.
for a couple years, like WCPW,
Yep.
and they had some huge names. Keith
Yeah,
Lee
they
went over there and wrestled. They had Pete Dunne.
Osprey.
They had Will Ospreay. They
Uh,
had um,
who else? Cody would show up here and
Cody.
there.
Cody showed up. I think carrying Cross. Like they had some big names go over
Uh,
there.
had a bunch of folks show up there.
But that's
Actually,
also when
WC. That's not. That's how I got introduced to a few wrestlers that I had no clue about. Um, I had never seen Will Ospreay before, and he did a show for WCPW. I'm like, who's this guy?
yeah,
And he started doing all the flippy shit. I'm like, well, damn,
yeah, good. He's great. Love Will Ospreay.
awesome.
But like, here's the thing about that. It's like that in turn created turmoil at What Culture. That's what caused the split and led to cultaholics becoming a thing.
Yep.
Because these people wanted to play booker, they wanted to play promoter,
Mhm.
and just weren't ready.
Nope.
The only thing I like about What Culture is Simon. I'm right there with you. Simon Miller is the best. Love him to death. But I even understand it because I was like, when I got into wrestling, I'm like, I'm going to start my own promotion. And I used to run
It's
on
like,
Wednesday nights. Man, is that difficult. Thank God I had people to help. And what did I do? Now I'm not trying to compare myself to Tony Khan. I'm not a billionaire. I don't have a big TV deal, whatever. I ran my first show. It was shit. It was awful. I immediately brought in people to help me book. I brought in my friend Michael, and he brought in other people, and we booked, and the show got a lot better very quickly. And I just,
it's the wealth.
it's just, and it's about bringing in the right people and then listening to them.
Yep.
That's all.
You gotta think about it. You have to spread that kind of you got to spread out the tasks, so to speak. You can't be you can't do everything. One person can't manage that many fucking things at once and expect it to always go smooth. You know, that's what's happening with Tony at AEW. It's like, bro, you have people that are on your books already who you could just get to help you just do creative shit alone. You got folks who are savvy in the business, vets in the business. Get them to help you. And I bet they'd be more than happy to help you. Some of them were already doing work like that before they came to you. Guys like Malenko, Double A, they were used to working backstage as producers.
William Regal.
Yep. Like, use your resources for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
You have plenty of them.
I think one thing that needs to happen, WWE, I think, is pretty good about not relying on dirt sheets or allowing them. They do their best. I mean, they're such a large company. It's hard to keep everybody in check. And so leaks still happen. But Tony Khan relies on the dirt sheets to further his storylines. That's got to stop.
Yeah,
He
it's kind
needs
of
to try
weird.
to tighten the reins as far as what gets out, tighten the reins on that, approach the people he's already got on the freaking books for help. Take a step back, breathe. I will say that every time I talk about this. Take a step
Mhm.
back, breathe, and allow people to help that are there. They want to help. There is so much like there are so many people in that locker room that want it to be as massively successful as possible. They are not there just for a paycheck. They want to see AEW become WWE level successful.
Hmm.
It's not going to happen if Tony Khan keeps this white knuckle grip on the reins.
Man, it's like he just doesn't want anyone else to have a say so.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just not. This is no. It's not gonna work.
It's literally what happens when a fan has all the money in the world and decides to run his own promotion is what's happening. Blurring the lines between works and shoots, like the whole MGF angle, which it has turned out that that's pretty much been proven to be 100% of work from day one. I'm sure they had contract negotiations, but it was definitely not near as bad. Proof of that is the fact that voice memo that was at the beginning of MJF coming out, where Tony Khan's begging him to come back.
Mhm.
That sounded like Tony Khan was reading from a script.
Oh yeah, he's already a robotic dude.
Yeah,
so
yeah, the whole thing was a work from the get go. You got to be able to step up as a boss and handle your employees. You watch Tony Khan in that post media scrum, he literally just has a dissociative episode and just kind of like checks out. No, he should have stepped up and stopped that.
it's just he was just there.
Yeah, he checked out.
Nothing.
He just you can see it. He mentally checked out. And he should have stepped up and stopped that.
Yeah.
And literally when he went to talk and Punk put his hand out and stopped him and continued on his tirade.
Oh boy.
That'd have been like, no. This is done. We're done. Punk, we're done. Like, you and I will talk later. Like, and then have a discussion with this man. Hey, you do not run this company. I do. You are not the boss. I am. Like, step up. Run your company. Because just think about this. We had the post-media scrum for Clash of the Castle.
Mm-hmm.
And Roman went out there and, stayed in character. Hey, Bree. Thank you for that. Roman stayed in character. Everybody else was out of character in that scrum, and it was great. Roman stayed in character, and he was mad at the Cardiff crowd for not acknowledging him. He got one question in. He's like, you need to do what the crowd didn't do and acknowledge me. That reporter acknowledged him. He got up and left. Now, imagine that Roman just started going off on a tirade and calling people out with Triple H sitting there. Triple H would have immediately stepped in.
Oh yeah.
To the point where he probably would have pulled the cord out of the back of the microphone. But he would have immediately stopped that.
He having none of that. He even had none of that. Oh dear. I hope not. Ew. Yeah. Well, they wouldn't have had any of that mess now. The moment you look like you're about to start doing that shit, it's no. Unless it's gonna make for like actual good TV, like they can use it some kind of creative way. And no, ain't no way. You're not gonna sit up and do that.
And the reason that kind of stuff doesn't happen is because, and the reason why WWE is okay with the Out of Character podcast with Ryan Satin, the After the Bell podcast with Corey Graves, where people are also out of character. The reason they're okay with that is because they trust their employees. They have set a precedent of, if you step out of line, you are punished accordingly. And so these people aren't going to go into, business for themselves because their livelihood is on the line.
It's wild, bro. Like, it shouldn't take all of that. Like, Tony Khan needs to really rope in a lot when it comes out. You have all of these vast personalities working for you. You got all of these different sized egos, all of these people who have been in the business far longer than you, obviously. And the way they're treating Tony Khan like a fucking just gonna put it like it is. They're treating him like a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
They are. They're treating him like a substitute teacher. Just like, yeah, you can give us work. That don't mean we gotta listen to you. It's like,
Yeah,
You
it's sad.
hear it. You hear it until the real boss come back. He's like, I am the real boss. Prove it.
He's like the stepdad that comes in when you're like 16 years old.
Oh God.
Like, yeah, I'm not calling you dad. You're not
It's
my
like
dad.
exactly. Super
You
pet.
didn't
Like,
raise me. You have nothing to do. Like, no, you're marrying my mom, sure, but you're not my dad.
yep.
And that's kind of what Tony. And like, all these guys grew up in this business. They've all have far more years in the business than Tony does, and they just. And I think that might be part of it too. Is that
Mhm.
especially people like Punk, who already think so highly of themselves. He's looking at Tony Khan like, dude, you've been doing this for a couple years. I've been doing this for over 20, over
That's
30.
wild.
You know,
Well,
uh, this
Finley
I
still
don't
works for
agree with.
WWE.
This I don't agree with. Tony needs to hire Finley and Bob Holly to whip him into shape. Finley, yes. Bob Holly, no. Bob Holly should not be near any locker room ever again.
But
This was a man who thought he should have been world champion because nobody should ever beat him.
he was yeah, he was one of
He
them good old
was
boys.
he had a kind of the same mentality that Punk has. He thought he should win every single one of his matches because nobody could ever actually beat him.
It was
You know, here's a guy who literally punched a tough enough contestant to the point where he almost
yeah.
destroyed his orbital bone and gave him a concussion. Yeah, no, they have an enforcer. They have literally the enforcer, Arn Anderson.
Double A.
They already
Hey,
have him.
you can't
Finley
say
still works for
Finley.
WWE, and I don't think like Finley's a. I mean, he'd be a great if he became a free agent. He'd be a great pickup too. But stop picking these people up if you're not going to use them.
Exactly. Tony
And
has
like
way too many people.
another thing I've noticed kind of out of Tony Khan. So we've heard about Malachi Black getting his conditional release.
Mhm.
I believe conditional is while the condition has not been spoken of. I believe that condition is like basically a non-compete clause
Yeah.
because the reason he was initially denied his release is because they figured he's a Triple H boy. He's going to go right back and make an impact over there immediately. So now he probably has like a 90-day no compete clause or something. Trust me, whenever he comes back, he's still making impact.
Oh
But
yeah.
you know what else Tony Khan did?
Mm.
Just this past week, after the announcement of Malachi Black's conditional release was announced, he then copyrighted House of Black. He just copyrighted House of Black. He is so afraid of the competition. He is so afraid of things that now that Malachi Black has been released, he's afraid he'll go back to being Aleister Black and bring the House of Black concept to WWE. Go ahead and copyright it. It's just in a name. But
Yeah.
this is, again, somebody who relies on dirt sheets to tell his story, somebody who doesn't understand the difference between work and shoot. Tony Khan is the epitome of smart mark.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
he has every opportunity at his fingertips to correct the issues, move forward. He has the people. He has the people. AEW can be, it's great now. There are some amazing matches.
So
But you're
much
not telling
better.
stories with your matches. You're trying to tell your stories outside. You have William Regal.
It
You
just
have Dean
doesn't work.
Malenko. You have some of the greatest ring psychologists ever.
Yeah.
Use them.
That's all you got to do.
Stop
not that
worrying
hard.
about kayfabe. Stop worrying about work shoots. Stop worrying about blurring the line. And just focus on telling the best stories. That's all. Because here's the thing. It's not often that WWE does work shoots.
No.
They don't do that very often.
This
Now,
is
with
like
Triple H, we might see more of it because he is a fan of it.
he's very lenient with the wrestlers.
But look at what we've seen with the Matt Riddle Seth Rollins feud. Like, that's a very well done work shoot. Very well done. See, WWE drops F-bombs. Obviously, they blur them or they censor them. But they drop them and they're impactful. AEW does it the first time it's impactful with MJF. Then A Steel does it and nobody cares. They're just laughing at the guy, basically.
This is wild.
And then it turns out that he's willing to bite people. You think he is Army Hammer?
Still
Jeez.
bothers me. You putting your mouth on people, man. The only person to ever bite somebody in a fight that I would not question their motives was Haku. That's it. That's because he bit a man's nose off.
Well, I won't question Mike Tyson to his face.
Oh God, no.
Because I'm not getting knocked the fuck out.
Hell no.
But because Mike Tyson still punches like he's 21 years old.
Man, it's like a fucking tank.
But even then, like that was like really bad that he did that. By the way, how hard of a bite force do you have to have that with a mouthpiece in you can still take out chunks of people's ears?
Pretty damn hard.
That's insane.
Pretty damn hard. Oof.
I think what happened. I think so. I use the terms. Take a step back and breathe a lot with Tony Khan.
Mm-hmm.
I think fans need to do that too.
Yeah.
Fans need to stop worrying about learning everything they can from the locker room. Need to stop
enjoy the product.
Just sit back, take a breath, and enjoy it. If you don't like a match, fine. Go on to the next one. Stop trying to bury people. Stop trying to a person has one bad match and suddenly you want them to go back to developmental or you want them fired and blah blah blah.
That shit. Oh.
Well, like now there's discourse again coming from people in the dirt sheets and the fans are just eating it up. How stupid was it to have Raquel and Aaliyah win the women's tag titles, and take it off them 2 weeks later? It's not stupid. They wanted a babyface team to win it back to help again build it up because they had to rebuild it. Basically, this is basically a new debut for the women's tag titles.
Yeah, they gotta build it up some kind of way.
They have a tournament riddled with injuries. They make the most of it. They have babyface. But then, because the internet's full of smart marks and they got to point everything out, it turns out that Aaliyah pinned the wrong person. Crap. Now we got to turn this into a storyline because people won't shut up about it. So instead of doing a longer feud or building to Dakota Kai and Io Sky winning it, we had to have them this past Monday take the titles off of them. Also, the fans were just they were not receptive to the babyface team. But, it wasn't dumb to have them win it. No. It gave them a title win. It's now on their record. But you knew eventually you were going to end up having a heel team win it because when Naomi and Sasha do come back, they're going to come back as faces no matter what they do.
Oh, yeah. Especially because of how long they've been gone.
Yeah, so you need them. Now, on that note, Sasha and Naomi have been suddenly very active on social media again. And have both gone back to Naomi WWE as her user handle and Sasha WWE as their user handles.
I noticed it.
Obviously, they're going to build back to this, but the plan was not to have them back immediately. So I'm sure that they had planned a longer title reign for Raquel and Aaliyah, but because of that mistake on the pin and people just calling it out, starting with Fightful calling it out and pointing it out to everybody.
They always do.
So it's just I don't want anybody to lose their job or their livelihood. No. This is how these people make their money. But maybe let's shift how these things are done. Let's stop talking in absolutes. Let's stop putting out rumors without any kind of verification.
Right.
Let's stop spoiling things. I can understand maybe putting it behind a paywall. Like I know Fightful has Fightful Select, which is their Patreon.
Yeah.
So maybe putting the spoilers behind a paywall. Okay. All right. I can kind of get that. But come on now. Don't act. If you're going to be a reporter, be a reporter. If you're going to be a journalist, be a journalist. Don't act like the standard IWC fan and think your opinion is fact when it's your job to report on facts and if it's a rumor to make it very clear that this is a rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't do that. They clickbait and they do all this stuff and People
Shit,
eat that shit
awful.
up.
Yeah, they eat it for
It's just
breakfast,
sad.
lunch, and dinner.
There's so much
And,
opportunity for wrestling to be one of the best communities in
oh,
fandoms.
yeah.
There's
Oh
so much
yeah,
opportunity for it. We have these wonderful, for lack of a better term, soap opera esque storylines and these wonderful people who go out there and literally put their lives on the line for our entertainment.
mm-hmm.
And instead, fans are just toxic and disgusting and terrible.
Makes
And
no fucking
again,
sense.
divided for no reason.
That part still trips me out. Like, what for?
I'm never like I stopped watching wrestling for a few years because of when I had to leave the business. I was kind of like hurt and I couldn't watch it. It didn't take long for me to get back into it though. When I first kind of caught on again, I was probably like 4 years where I didn't watch any wrestling. I got back into it though, but there's so many people out there who hate watch things. They've been like, "Oh, I hate
So
WWE. I
weird.
hate it." And I'm like, why are you watching?
Like, change the
Why do you
channel,
know
find
so
something
much
else.
about it if you hate it?
Exactly.
And look, I'm not saying you have to like both products
No,
or New Japan or the Indies or anything like that. You don't have to. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. There's no reason to shit on anybody else who likes it. But the thing is, if you like one, you don't have to automatically hate the other.
man. Pro WWE is not anti AEW, and vice versa. It's never been that. I don't know who created this idea that that's the thing, but it's not. Just because you like one more than the other doesn't mean you hate the opposite.
Yeah. Again, and like you said, and he says it here. That's the thing about toxic. The toxic fandom is throughout all fandoms. Exactly. It's like Marvel and DC. You have so many people who are like, "Oh, DC's the best. Marvel's stupid. It sucks." Blah blah blah. Or Marvel's the best. DC sucks. I love them both.
They both have
I
their
love
ups
them
and
both.
downs. They both
Do
have
I like
things
one? Do I like one more than the other? Maybe, but
that
it
is
doesn't mean I
frost.
don't enjoy both. And my camera froze again. You son of a
Yeah,
bitch.
it just like just did it.
Oh, this time it's Zoom because now you're frozen too.
Oh dear.
We're good. You can still hear us, so we'll keep talking. But there's no reason whatsoever that it has to be divided. It's just it makes no sense. I don't understand why things have to be divided. There's no need for it. You can like both. You can enjoy both. I like Star Wars and Star Trek. I like Marvel and DC. I like WWE and AEW. Exactly. I like Star Wars and Star Trek. And I think that's where one of the fandoms we have to thank Star Trek fans for us having San Diego Comic Con and D23 and all these other things. Because the Trekkies started the conventions. Really. They really started these fandom conventions. But the flip side of that is it started a divide between Star Wars and Star Trek. And Toxicity started to breed there when people are like, "Oh, Star Trek's better than Star Wars." Blah blah blah.
They're not even similar.
It's just because the word "star" is in their name.
Yeah, and they
That is
both
the only
do.
similarity.
And they
One
both.
is one is a space western slash opera in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
The other is a almost political drama out in space, and that's Star Trek.
That's wild.
Yes, I've seen Trekkies. It's very fascinating documentary.
Is there even a term of endearment for Star Wars fans? Because I mean, at least
I
Star
don't think
Trek
so.
fan. We don't have anything. I'm more of a Star Wars guy than Star Trek. But like, yeah, y'all, motherfuckers get to get called Trekkies. I'm like, y'all got a whole nickname. We don't have nothing.
Yeah, I don't think there is one.
That ain't right.
Now, but like, see, I guess for me, I'm I guess technically more Star Trek than Star Wars if I had to pick one,
Mm,
but I still love Star Wars.
of course.
There's no reason why you can't love both. That's not how this works, and people
No,
need to understand that. There's no need to be a divide. You can like both. It's okay. And also, by the way, it's okay to not know how the machine works. Because I'm tell you what, again, I have a degree in film production.
mhm.
I love watching behind the scenes. I love listening to commentaries on movies. I love learning about that kind of behind the scenes stuff. I still don't know everything there is to know about filmmaking, and that's okay. I'm
Yeah.
nowhere near knowing everything there is to know about filmmaking, and that's
Watching
okay.
one behind the scenes section on a DVD or Blu-ray doesn't give you the full thing. It
Yeah.
just shows you certain steps they took to make certain stuff happen.
And guess what? I was an independent wrestler for 4 years. I ran my own promotion. I worked dark matches for both WWE and TNA. I definitely don't know everything about the business. I have friends that are still in the business to this day. I don't know everything about the business, and that's okay.
It's
I don't
like
know
that.
everything about how the machine works, and that's okay. We don't need to know everything about how the machine works. Because guess what? If you learned how some of your favorite foods were made, you'd probably stop eating them.
Ooh. Yeah.
And take that from somebody who's a certified chef. Take that from somebody who spent years cooking, competing in the world's largest culinary competition. If you found out how some of your foods were made, especially your favorite snack foods, you'd probably never eat them again.
I've seen some of those like little videos, they'll show it.
Yeah.
It ain't right.
Ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Oh, most definitely.
And I think in fandoms that people, because they're so invested in the fandom, I get it. They're so invested in the product. They want to know everything they can know about it. But sometimes too much knowledge is a bad thing,
Yeah.
especially when you can't verify that knowledge and it becomes tainted by people's opinions.
Yep.
Take a step back. You don't need to see behind the curtain. You don't need to see who the great Wizard of Oz is all the time. Just relax, enjoy the product for what you get.
Some people can't do that.
And
Some
that's
people
sad.
that's some people that's
And
way
that's
too
a
much like
problem.
right. Yeah. They gotta know. It's like they just have this itch or they just gotta scratch it.
If you're one of the people who wants to pay the money for that behind the paywall sub spoiler or whatever, that's fine. Go
Doing
for it.
all of that.
Do you. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just telling you to not make it your whole personality. Don't make it toxic. You don't need to know every cog in the machine to be a fan. It's the same with gatekeeping people, like especially in comic books. Well, did you read this comic book? Then how are you a fan? Blah 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 blah. Shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up. There are literally millions of issues of comics out there.
Yeah.
Millions.
Jesus Christ, yes.
Batman and Superman just hit over 1,000. Spider-Man just hit issue 900. Like there's and that's the very tip of the iceberg. There are so many out there. We have 80 years of comic books. And just between the two biggest publishers, DC and Marvel,
Yeah.
they have 5 or 6 titles per character sometimes. I mean, Spider-Man had Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Like there's so many and that's just one character.
Mm-hmm.
You have so many characters that get their own books or teams that get their own book. Like it's just there's too many out there.
It
Nobody
is.
has read, nobody in the world has or ever will read every comic.
No. If you
It is
have
just a
this,
it is a it's a probable impossibility that somebody has read every single comic book that's out there. Because then you've also got Vertigo, Image, every other independent. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
they release
So
comics pretty frequently.
here's the thing: if you like a character,
Mhm.
you can go get more of their stuff.
Yeah.
You can learn more about them. If you come into a character from a TV show or movie, like a perfect example is She-Hulk right now, you can go back and read She-Hulk stuff. And you can kind of skip the filler issues. You can kind of skip and just get the main story bits. That's the amazing thing about it. And the same with wrestling. If you're a new fan or you're a fan who's only ever watched WWE, you refuse to watch AEW on principle, which I don't understand that principle at all. But
That's beyond me.
you've never watched every WWE match.
No,
So don't act like you're an expert
right.
because it just comes off as pretentious and rude.
Very much so.
If you choose not to watch AEW, then don't speak on AEW. If you choose to prefer AEW to WWE and you stopped watching WWE now, then don't speak on WWE. Just let people be fans of what they want to be fans of.
Some people just have something to gripe about, something to be mad about.
There's a weird sense of control with fandoms. And this goes back again to the work shoot thing, is they feel like they have to control the narrative. They have I hate to use that because of, but they have to control the idea. They have to control everything. So they have to control who's allowed in and who's not allowed in. They have to control what gets put out and what doesn't get put out. They have to control like the topic. Like, your opinion does not equal fact, no matter how much you want to control the narrative. Talking about liking characters, I love Butch. He reminds me of the Chicken Hawk from Falcon Lego cartoons, always wanting to fight. I actually had that exact same thought, and I love it. And I love a different side of Pete Dunne as Butch. I love that they are kind of like allowing him to kind of merge the two together. He's, when he wrestles, he's gone back to his bruiserweight look, but I think that the bruiserweight and all, like, for me, and again, this is just my opinion, it got boring. Like, none of his matches were boring. He always had great matches, but the character got boring. And I think now as Butch, and part of it, this wild and crazy, like bloodthirsty, for lack of a better term, character is great, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So I love Butch too.
It's pretty funny. I dig it. Outside of like the Broserweights, he really never did anything.
But here's the thing.
Matt Riddle did most of the talking.
You put out that thought. I'll put that comment back up. You put out that thought on TikTok or Twitter or something like that, and you'll get eaten alive.
Oh, I know.
By people who don't like the character. And they don't like it not because they don't like what's going on. It's just not what they are used to. And that's a lot of the problem too. When somebody changes gimmick, it's like the Walter de Gunther name. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I accept it and I've moved on.
Yep.
But people will eat you alive for that take. Oh, how can you love it? It's objectively terrible. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's subjective. You don't like it, and that's
subjective as fuck. It there.
I didn't say you had to like it because I like it. I just said I like it. That's my opinion. Your opinion is you don't like it. Fine. Move on. You don't have to like it.
Some people are just, I don't know. I can't explain it. Some people are just weird. It's just weird when it comes to stuff like that. They just feel like they just have to have the last say. So they gotta have last word. They gotta be right. Like, you're not gonna always be right.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't. It's a weird mentality to have, and like I can understand. Like, I guess I kind of partially get it because there are times when I see somebody who will make a statement. I do get infuriated at times when people come out and make declarative statements on their opinion as if it's fact. I do my best to, when I try to show people facts to disprove what they're talking about, to do it in a very classy and upstanding way.
Yep.
And that's something I've always done. But it is still, there's a moment of infuriation. Like I've seen people, and even like they'll give a theory. They won't even promote it as fact, but they'll like, here is my theory on this. But their theory is based on absolutely nothing or misunderstanding how something is. And so I will do my best to like, okay, well, here, let me give you a counterpoint to that. Let me show you where you kind of messed up, blah, blah, blah. But it is like, you, in that moment of seeing it, I understand that it's infuriating. Like, oh, this is stupid. Like, how are you this dumb? But what I do is take a step back, I breathe, and I'm like, hey, this person's just giving their opinion. Let me help educate them the best way I can. Now, some people take that as an attack, even though I'm as classy and as upstanding as I can possibly be in these. I will literally say no hate to this creator.
It doesn't mean anything to some people. Some
Yeah,
folks just gotta be.
but because of going all the way back to what we talked about with social media being the crux of all this,
Yep.
it's rare that positivity gets you clout. It is
Oh my
incredibly
god.
common that negativity gets you clout. Again, this is all being
Mm,
proven by like that marvelous Mark on TikTok, literally attacking, telling creators, including telling female creators, to shut up, and they're stupid, and your opinion is stupid and it's false, and
just
blah blah blah.
cause.
This
Just
whole the
because.
MCU is in shambles and blah blah blah. It's like if they're putting out record numbers, man, I think you need to calm down.
Exactly. Oh, case in point, like they were, I think it was Rolling Stones, I believe, did a top Marvel movie list and or
Yep,
top comic movie list, and
comic book movie list.
Black Panther was number one, and folks are mad, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, you know why that's up there? Because it was one of the highest. It's the highest grossing Marvel movie out of all of them. That's
I think
why
it's
it's
the
up
highest
there."
grossing solo Marvel movie.
Hmm. I'm like, what are you missing now? Like, man,
Personally, I don't agree. I don't agree with it being number one.
I don't know what they base the list off of.
But again, that list is it's subjective. It's not
Very,
objective.
very
Nor
much
did they
so.
claim it to be objective. They weren't saying this is the definitive objective list. This is
Mm,
like this is our list. And it's the same with wrestling, like the PWI 500 list and all that.
mm.
Now, the PWI does try to make it seem like this is the official objective list.
Even though it's
However,
not.
it's not. And that's why some wrestlers are like, oh, I'm honored to be on the list. And other wrestlers are like, I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
And there's been people who are number one on that list be like, I don't care. And then there's people who make number 500 and they're like, I'm so honored to be on the list. Because it's, again, it's subjective.
There. And like it's mm, in, in like the video I told you went viral for me. People got really pissy about what I said. I'm like, this is how I see this. And I even implored people, it's like, if you don't like how I did this, go make your own video, go make your own, list or whatever. This is mine. This is my opinion. This is how I feel about this particular set of wrestlers and whatnot. How I feel like they should be ranked from worst to best or
Yeah.
whatnot. It's not me saying that these guys are not legends. It's not me saying any of these wrestlers aren't great at what they have done or do. I'm just saying if I had to make a list, this is how it's gonna go. That's it.
Well, I think the thing with social media is given everybody an inflated sense of self.
Mhm.
They see that heart get clicked on. They see likes popping up. They see followers, and suddenly they feel like they're important. I think TikTok is one of the worst. We discussed this before.
Egos. Freaking egos.
Only about less than 5% of your followers on TikTok are actually real. All the rest are people who they're either bots or the people who just farm accounts, and so they just click on and follow everybody.
I can't do that.
Um, if you have 4 million followers on TikTok, it's probably only about 10,000 of them that are actually real.
It's crazy.
Um, like I have 6,000 followers, maybe 300 of them are actually real. It is what it is. That's social media for you. TikTok is more inflated than any other, and that's part of it was because of how they saw a growth during the pandemic and they decided
Hmm.
to enact on that, and they actually had a way of hiding using bots to artificially grow their app because of the pandemic. They were seeing like, oh, we're already having a natural growth. Now we can inflate that. We can
It's
make it
weird.
exponentially larger.
It's
And
super weird.
there's no regulation to it or whatnot. It's the same with like Instagram followers. If you are Instagram famous, you're not famous.
Mhm.
You are not like you see those skits all the time about people like, oh, well, I should get my meal for free and I'll just shout it out on my Instagram because I have this, I
Oh
have 20
God.
million followers, blah, blah, blah. I don't
Like, what does
care.
that even mean?
That means
Which
nothing.
man,
It means nothing. I miss Vine. That was social media done right. In a
mm,
way, but also Vine is what's led to us having no attention span whatsoever.
facts. I mean, 6 second
Vine,
videos.
Vine honestly altered comedy for the entire world. Having only 6 seconds to do things,
Yeah.
and that's why TikTok, even though they now allow up to 10-minute videos,
Mhm.
the most successful videos are 15 seconds or less
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah. Short and sweet.
Um,
People like short and sweet now.
yeah, because it's just nobody has the attention span anymore. The average attention span is I think it's 7.2 seconds or
Yep.
7.6 seconds, something like that. Like I think it's 7.6.
Like
7.6 seconds is the average attention span nowadays. If you can't catch somebody in 7 seconds, you're done.
you gotta go
Um,
keep them.
I don't know if I mentioned him on this podcast before. I mentioned him on my other one. I'm a big Mr. Beast fan,
Yeah.
and he's somebody doing it right because he has done nothing but positive to the point where people are literally trying to find dirt on him
Mhm.
because they can't stand how much of a positive impact he is, which is also a sad thing in society. But we can get into that another time.
People feel like
But
they
he's
gotta
also,
shut down people.
yeah. If you look at, yeah, see, there you go. I'm sorry. What did you say? I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, exactly. Um, he did a great interview with Colin and Samir, and he talked
Mhm.
about how he does his videos, and like they talked about one specifically was where he gets chased by an FBI agent, and if the FBI agent catches him, he gives him $100,000. He has a very quick and poppy intro. It's like, I've got $100,000. This is an FBI agent, and all they've got is a knife. They're tied up. Now they got to catch me, and he runs off. Less than 7 seconds, catches your attention. And then throughout the video, he's constantly doing things to keep it interesting. Because if he got just chased for 15 minutes, you'd lose interest and not click on it.
Yeah.
But then they had like, I think there's an exploding bridge in that one. There's porta potties in a helicopter. There's a boat. There's a mansion. There's a warehouse. There's all like an airplane. Oh, that was the one where he took an airplane to DC. They had to drive to DC to catch him. He wore a
Mhm.
mask as an old man in a Walmart. Again, it's pop 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 pop. Long for like, why do you think people got so out of whack when Avengers Endgame was 3 hours long or the Batman movie was 3 hours long? Why do you
Yep.
think people now bitch more than ever that Raw is 3 hours long?
They just can't like
Nobody
they
had.
can't
Do you
focus that
understand
long.
that movies back in the day all hit almost 3 hours?
Mhm. Matter of fact, I got an even better one. You know how there are certain songs from back in like the 60s, 70s, and some in the 80s that were really fucking long, that the original cuts were super long, like
Yeah,
case in point, Back in Black. It was a lot longer than what they recorded,
yeah,
but they cut cut it at a certain point because Angus kept playing that solo at the end.
yeah.
They cut
Well,
it for radio play.
songs used to be over 3 minutes on average. Now they're less than two.
Yeah.
They're 2 minutes or not less, if anything. But like Gone with the Wind's over 3 hours long. Cleopatra, Ben Hur.
Malcolm X.
Then going up into the 80s and 90s, you had Braveheart, Gladiator, Malcolm X, Forrest Gump. All these movies, boom, 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 boom.
But the thing about some of those
Okay,
movies that
real
are real,
quick.
go for
Bree
it.
brought up, yes, like Iron Butterflies, Inagata Davida. Let me tell you an interesting thing about Inagata Davida real quick.
Oh
The
my
name is
god.
actually in the Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
but the guy was so high and so drunk during recording, it came out Inagata Davida, and it became the name. Like that's what it is, Inagata Davida. It's actually in the Garden of Eden. Very funny. So I thought that was, I think that's funny.
You made me think
But here's
about
again,
Flea.
I've seen some posts about Mr. Beast says he's an awful person behind the scenes, but I'm sure it's a scam, smear campaign. It is. I can't give away too much, but I have spoken to some people behind the scenes at Mr. Beast. Um, Nothing but an amazing dude. Is he driven and passionate about what he does? Yes. The man lives in his, he got rid of his house and he actually lives in his office in his studio. He has a bed in his office, in his studio. He now lives in his studio. He is that dedicated to his YouTube videos. They work 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day. They have a 100-acre studio where they are building sets upon sets upon sets. I saw that. I'm not even going to put that up there. That's rude. I'm not doing it. Make me feel old. What's wrong with you? But yeah, so like, again, you see somebody with dedication and passion, and for some reason you feel the need to tear them down.
Um,
Why?
it's
Why
like
is
that
negativity
dude.
so prevalent?
That's like that guy on TikTok. He did this little, it's like this little rap he did or whatnot, trying to get the attention of Lauren Michaels from SNL.
Yes.
And folks were ripping him apart for a lot of people were pushing him to get the recognition he deserves or that he's looking for. And there are a lot of folks who just at him. There are folks with massive platforms who, and I've, eh, Jesus, excuse me, but there are people with big platforms who are going after him. When someone who is that high up on the social media food chain does it, it's really debilitating because they that's a massive blow because they have a lot of people following them, a lot of people paying attention to what they post. If they post something negative on someone else, it's gonna automatically have that automatic impact on them.
I think
And it's messed up.
well, I think in that particular situation, first of all, it was very cringy, the video the guy made.
Yes, I will
Very
admit
cringy.
that. Yes.
Um, so in comedy, one form of flattery is a roast.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the bigger creators were roasting this guy, but out of love, like, hey, look, this was cringy. We're gonna roast you, but it is what it is. But then people took it and decided to like tell this guy to kill himself and tell this guy that he
Yeah.
needs to die and da 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 da. And they took it way too far.
Yep.
And so I can understand roasting the dude because it was very cringy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take your platform and try to bury somebody,
Yeah, that
that's where
wasn't
you go
right.
too far. And then telling a guy to kill himself is way beyond ridiculous.
That is
The guy is very the
it's
guy, unfortunately, he's very he is very cringy. The guy works at Disneyland as a very cringy singer at Disneyland. Like the guy's very cringy. Um, but to each their own. And I applaud him for taking a shot.
mm-hmm.
And I didn't like the video, but I
And
also wasn't
neither.
going to roast the guy because again, he took a shot. I understand roasting him when done in a proper roasting comedic way, but the people who are out there telling him to like, again, kill himself, telling him to get off the app and telling da da da, it's no wonder the guy stopped posting things because it's just sad.
It is. It's
And that's
not
the same
right.
thing that's happening with Mr. Beast. It's the same thing that happens with wrestlers. How many times do we
Mhm.
hear about a wrestler having to they disable their Twitter or their Instagram
Oh,
because
God.
people are
Nowadays, it's
they're getting death threats
bad.
and just constant berated. And again, this is
Mhm.
another problem with social media. We're so interconnected. We have the ability. People are like, oh, it's worse now than ever. I don't think it's worse now than ever in the sense that
No.
these people always existed. They just didn't have an outlet. Now they have a
Yeah.
way to speak where they can hide behind their keyboard
Yes, sir.
because they're certainly not going to do it to your face.
No, hell no. No. And then the immediate access to these folks is it's way too much. Even if they
Yeah.
don't reply to it, the fact that you can, tag a certain wrestler or creator or something like that in something and say whatever you want to say. And that's just that. The 9 times out of 10, they can't just, sit around and take it on nose because they got their PR and all of this stuff like that to keep them from doing that.
Another problem, and we have in our last 5 minutes. This is what I'm going to touch on.
Mhm.
The call is also coming from inside the house because you have people like Booker T basically body shaming Adam Cole.
This
You
shit made
have
me so
the
mad.
young bucks who love to use social media to call things out.
Yep.
Um, like
It beyond
if
bitch.
you don't want that to happen, it starts inside the home. It starts inside that locker room.
Yep.
Put a stop to that shit. Stop calling for people to be fired. Stop attacking people for their looks. Stop calling out the other company and trying to sound like you're better than them. Find more
Stuff's
constructive
crazy.
ways. If you want to compete with the other company, fine.
Yeah,
Find more constructive ways to do so. Because
it's
now
not
the
that
Young Bucks,
hard.
the rumor is the Young Bucks are already reaching out to WWE.
I heard about that too.
And like they still have until early 2024 before their contract's up. So they have over
Mm,
a year. But they're already reaching out. And anybody with any sense can look at what they've done over the last few years and be like, you guys have done nothing but trash us.
yeah,
You've done nothing but trash us for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Do we really want that in our locker room? On top of that, what happened with this brawl backstage is incredibly
it's
toxic, and you're
just
just as much at fault.
bad. That's what we call ruining your stock.
Yeah, so like all these people are burning bridges uh, without even building the bridge yet. And like I said, the call's coming from inside the house.
Hmm.
I don't think we'll ever fully get away from toxicity. I don't think it'll ever fully go away. But if we can stop it inside the locker room first
Hmm.
and start spreading positivity, finding ways to properly educate, or just if they don't want to listen, ignore and block. Do not give them the clout they're looking for.
And my block button is heavy.
Yeah.
I be wearing that motherfucker out. I be wearing it out. Just some people are not worth the response. They're not.
Yeah. It's just like I had actually considered contacting this marvelous Mark guy and having him on my podcast
Mm,
just so I could debate him basically. Then I'm like, no, I'm not giving him another platform.
no,
I'm not doing it.
no,
I'm
because
not,
it's
because that's what he wants. And he's just going to use it and try to turn it into more fuel for his negativity fire. And I'm not about it. I'm not going to do it. Oh, hold on. Everything okay with Phil?
not sure.
Okay. Yeah, we're good. So following us will be Outside the Brand with Phil Lamette and friends. I wanted to make sure he just sent a message. I was making sure that we didn't have to go long. He's good.
Okay.
So he's good there. Again, as we're wrapping up, I think that if we can continue to build, and the thing is, the negative people, the toxic people, they are a minority. They really are. They're
Yeah.
just a very vocal one. If we can start shutting them up via becoming the vocal majority of positivity, as well as ignoring and blocking the negativity, at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. As far as blurring that line between work and shoot, let's stop putting so much stock into what's reported, the dirt sheets, etc. Let's stop
Exactly.
putting so much stock into what we think is going on and just sit back and be fans once again. Let's
Yeah.
just be fans. Let's stop worrying about, was that a work? Was it a shoot? Did they really hate each other? Did this really happen? Da, da, da. How about we just let it play out?
Man, that used to be my favorite part of. That's why I started back watching some of the old Monday Night Raws from like the Ruthless Aggression era. Because I, even though I know what's gonna happen, I used to always, remember. I'm like, man, what's going on? What's happening next week? I can't wait to see next week's episode, or et cetera, et cetera. That was the beauty of it. The excitement of not knowing. Only going with the flow of what they showed me. And there's something I miss. I miss the argument, the anticipation of the next episode, the next match, the next this or the next that. But because so many folks leak shit and just spill the beans on stuff, it's like I can't even
Yeah.
I can't even have that.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
It
On
is.
that note, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you everybody for joining in the conversation. You guys have been fantastic as always. Let's just go out there and be positive people. Let's go out there and just be fans. Let's be fans. If you don't like something, that's fine. If you do like it, great. Let's just be fans again, guys. How about that? As always, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, hit the follow button. If you feel so gracious, please subscribe. It's just $4.99, or if you have an Amazon Prime sub, you can use that and make Jeffrey Bezos pay for it. It's always great. As always, thanks to our sponsor, Rootless Coffee. Go to rootlesscoffee.com. Use the code PANDA Coffee, PANDACOFFE, for 15% off all non-branded coffee and all merchandise. We love each and every one of you, and we will see you guys next week.